And now on our evening segment of FoamFest Live 2020, we go to Project FDL, who will be hosting us for the next hour and a half on design, engineering and print in the 3D Nerf hobby. And we go now to the first segment with him and with Jesse and Jackie talking to Alice Coatduck and H from H Attachments. And they will take you through until 8:15 for the first segment. So over to Jesse and Jackie in the studio.
Hey guys, like Boff said, it's Jesse and Jackie from Project FDL. If you guys don't know who we are, I would imagine most of you do, but we are both of us 50-50 from Project FDL. I designed the FDL 1, 2, 3, and we're actually releasing a thing called the Pip and Pack pretty soon, which is sort of my take on a proton pack as well. So again, like Boff said, we have Alice Coatduck with us here and H from H Attachments, which I thought was Atch, but I'm glad that we have the people that pronounce things correctly because it's H. So we are going to talk with these two and then two more folks in about 45 minutes about engineering, technology, 3D printing, and things like that in the greater Nerf hobby. So why don't we start by having the two of you guys kind of give us your grand intro, let us know who you are, like how long have you been in the hobby, what is it you do, that sort of stuff. We can start with Alex.
Yeah. I've been in the hobby for, I want to say 4 years now, 3 or 4 years now. I do mostly design work now, and try to release open source parts and projects and stuff whenever I can.
Cool. Hey, yeah, I'm in the UK and I've probably got my first Nerf blaster like 10 years ago. But I'd probably say maybe the last 4 years is when I started getting into modding kind of more seriously. Got my hands on a 3D printer, which kind of opened up a lot of doors for me. I'm not really restricted to one kind of thing. I mostly just like thinking, oh my goodness, could I make that kind of thing? And then I just try and do it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it fails. But yeah, I just love the building process.
I guess we can go too, right? So,
right? What are you asking?
I didn't. The big intro for us. So, Project FDL has existed for I think about 4 years now.
4 or 5 years, yeah.
I was designing stuff about a year prior with no common knowledge that the Nerf community actually existed. So I think I've been at this about 5 years. You kind of came on a little bit later.
Yeah, like 3 years ago.
Yeah. So I started what wasn't called Project FDL. It was just like FDL 1 at the time. And then that got crazy enough that Jackie came on board. So anyway, so I think, you know, we kind of chatted about stuff that we wanted to talk about ahead of time. I know that the two of you guys kind of come from two sort of different backgrounds. Like H, I know you run like an Etsy shop, correct?
Yeah, that's sort of where I started out. I'm seeing if I can get over to something else, but yeah, that's where I am for now.
Yeah. So you're selling mostly like pre-printed parts, designs that you've done that you're printing. Are you doing a lot of commissions, or is it kind of stuff that you have pre-designed that you're selling?
I mostly started on like upgrade parts and small bits, so I'd normally print them myself. But now I'm got a bit more into blasters. Sometimes I'll take on an order or two for some of the newest stuff I've designed. Yeah, I like keeping it slow because otherwise I get stressed if my printers break or something and the order takes really long to fulfill. So I sort of take one at a time.
Yeah. So I know, Alice, you do a lot of commissions, correct? Like you don't necessarily have like a shop per se.
Yeah, I haven't taken commissions in a little while now. It's mostly just been building for myself and my friends if you know, if that's the sort of thing I'm feeling up to. It really has mostly been design work and just printing off custom stuff. but I haven't been selling much of it, no.
Cool. So that's sort of our backgrounds. I'm going to ask the same question to both groups, and kind of go over, like, when you guys started the hobby, what was the tech like around? You know, what were people making things out of? What were they like? How is that different from what you are seeing now? And how does that make you feel? Either one of you can go first.
I'll get it over with. Yeah, I guess I don't know if I was the most aware of everything in the hobby when I started, but I certainly remember like all the videos and things I was watching online was like PVC pipes and cutting up shells, lots of epoxy putty, a lot of kind of manual work. People cutting things out of polycarb and whatnot. And actually, I think at uni there was a guy that said basically, if you're not cutting it yourself out of polycarb and it's not modding, I don't like this 3D printing stuff.
Yeah.
Too easy. But no, I think that's kind of been the change. There's a lot more CAD work, I think, coming into modding. And it's opened up a load of awesome possibilities. But sometimes I also like to just go back to, like, I'll get like my hacksaw out or something and feel like, oh, it's been a long time since I've used this. So I'd say that's kind of the change I've seen.
What about you, Alice?
Yeah, I was really surprised to find how little advantage of 3D printing the community was taking, and actually the people that I was really impressed with were actually you guys, Jackie and Jesse. And I was also really surprised by the lack of brushless stuff, which again is you guys. But yeah, like I remember a time when what was considered the best homemade was, you know, a couple of pieces of clear PVC with some, you know, planks of wood with rounded corners glued on and screwed on, and you know, as time went by, people started to pick up 3D printing and using it for more and more stuff, and now cosmetic stuff, and not just, you know, parts, and it's getting really cool.
Yeah, I think I experienced the same thing too. Except I think when I showed up to my first war, I already like had an FDL gun in hand.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, it did.
You did.
But
You showed up. You were like dunk with this big thing in your hand.
I didn't go through that experience of like, okay, here's my PVC thing, some polycarbonate, and all of those things.
You did a couple homemades, but like it was more like, oh, this war I have to have this for, so I have to make this for that. It wasn't. That was what your primary focus was doing.
Yeah, but it was still, you know, it's the same experience as you guys. When I first got into it, there was a lot of PVC, and we had a pretty vibrant, you know, what you would call NIC scene in the Southeast. So, like, for people that are new to the hobby, sometimes you hear NIC, and that means like the Nerf internet community. Sometimes when people say that, it means everybody has really powerful PVC blasters. Like there's kind of two different meanings there. But I entered into a scene that was pretty heavy into those, and that was, you know, the days like Nerfomania still exists. And his stuff was so cool and just handmade, you know, with saws, and I don't know, it was really neat. But yeah, we've definitely obviously seen the 3D printing thing really grow, and it's really amazing to watch so many people like learn CAD for the sake of designing a Nerf blaster, or like learn how to program for the sake of putting an Arduino in a Nerf blaster. I know, Alice, when I first met you, you were like the one other person that I knew that was like putting an Arduino in a Nerf blaster. That was pretty cool at the time.
Yeah, I got talked out of brushless by a bunch of people saying it was totally impractical, and I regret that. That's one of my biggest regrets was not just, you know, putting my foot down and being like, no, we're going brushless now. Like, but yeah, there was it was awesome to meet somebody that was on the same wavelength as me, and you know.
Yeah, I was just thinking about something now. I don't know if you agree or not, but I feel that perhaps what people have done more is move more where it's mostly modifying a Hasbro shell that you already had, and people are now moving to thinking about completely making their own custom idea from scratch instead of just tweaking something else and thinking about like what do they want in general, and then starting to make that with kind of the tools and things that we've discussed that have become more prevalent like in the recent years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look at the Caliburn. With the Caliburn being open source, everybody just took it, and there's a new version of a Caliburn handle or grip or magwell or there's just so many different versions of it, and it all comes from people just being able to take it and play with those files and tweak it to however they want. Yeah. It's a really cool evolution to see.
Yeah. Yeah, the Caliburn was much more open source when it first came out. I mean, when I got in and we had the FDL 1 and 2, it was more of, here's the STL files, you can go print it, have fun with that or whatever. I wasn't really cued into the official open source thing yet, but I think, something like the Caliburn really started pushing people in that direction and made it really easy. So something that I wanted to get into with you guys as designers is, what is your process like when you have a concept and you want to take that to like workable prototype? I'm not even talking like final product, because we all know that between working prototype and final product is its own little game. But like, what is it like between concept and working prototype for you guys?
I'll go first, yes. I think for me, I'm very focused on something practically working, and I also try and make it look nice, but that's kind of on secondary. So I think when I have an idea, I guess I think about the aspects of that idea. So I guess I'll run through an example. So I made a auto raving kit, which is basically a copy of an auto strife kit. And so just thinking about it, I think, okay, well, it's got to be really small and compact and fit in this space. And I need to get some gears to mesh, and they need to mesh correctly and not slip. Like, you've got to get gears to be the right shape and all these things. So I'll kind of test each aspect of the design individually to kind of prove that it can work, and then make it slightly better, like a proof of concept essentially. And once you've got that working, then I'll work on the next part of the design and kind of get that working until I've then slowly got like a fully functioning thing that I can pop in a blaster, I guess.
Cool. What about you, Alex?
So when it comes to mechanical parts, I usually just sit there for, several hours with a set of calipers and, just sort of see what the design says to me and what it facilitates. But the thing that I have way more fun with is designing stuff from scratch. So if I'm designing a blaster from scratch, I will I'll start on a sticky note. I've got a bunch of them on my wall and just like get the rough shape that is in my brain onto a sticky note and throw that up on the wall and just then probably ignore it for 6 months. In that time, it will have, stirred around in my brain, and I pull it up in Photoshop. And then I usually spend a couple hours just trial and error drawing something that I think looks good. And if it's something that has really specific mechanical requirements, I will 3D model the important bits, the technical bits, and then export them with a little reference square so I know what size everything is. And then work on arranging those in a way that is functional and also aesthetically pleasing if I have that much room to mess around with it. And then I'll just paint over that and just see what I like, what looks good. And and then from there pull it into Fusion and then do all the 3D modeling, which I just said in one sentence, but really is like a, like 4-day long process if I just did it start to finish.
Yeah. So you so when I do this, I know that there are kind of two methodologies that people take. You either design inside out or outside in. And I know so there was Jake Hengler.
Reciprocation props.
Yes, reciprocation props. He is a local to us. He is like officially an industrial design engineer. I don't consider myself officially an engineer. Like I do the engineering act, right? But it's hard for me to officially say that. So he's an industrial engineer, and I know that like from that design perspective, you kind of design from outside in. So they do a lot of cutting things out of foam to get the like outside shape, and then you kind of figure out how to stuff stuff in later. I do very much the opposite of that. I do kind of what you were talking about, Alice, where you're like, all right, this is your basic mechanical components. Let's figure out how big that needs to be, kind of start designing around that, maybe come back to that a little bit later, work your way out. Like it's this kind of slinky thing. And I know it's an interesting process. I haven't really like landed on the right way to do that. I've been winging it the whole time. I'll be completely honest with everybody.
I think I agree with that kind of process. I'll normally have the main parts I have in a design. So like I've been designing stuff for the supercore recently, which is an HBA kind of system. And so I'll have that with its fittings leading to a valve, because I know that has to take up that much space. And then I'll have like a handle floating somewhere in CAD just as like a reference. And then as I go through the process, I might move that over, and then add in some flywheels from somewhere else and reference that and move it around. That's something that I think is amazing about Fusion, is that you can bring in separate objects and files into one space and move them around just to reference, and it makes everything so much easier, I think.
Yeah. I'm so new to Fusion, like I don't even know how to do that. But so I came from AutoCAD, right? Which is like I did a lot of not architectural, but like building level stuff in AutoCAD, and that's a very different process. And I tried to apply that to 3D modeling, and it's real hard because the things are static, right? So there's no like I draw a cylinder now. I'm going to go back 10 million design steps from now and say, well, I want that circle to actually be this size, right? You're basically taking a piece of clay, sculpting it as you go. So I made a lot of my design process starts a lot with me sitting and staring at the screen and doing absolutely nothing.
And like confirm.
Yeah. Like kind of talking about like what you do, H, where you're like, yeah, let's get everything kind of in a space, but then it's just hours of just staring at it, trying to like figure out how everything's gonna go together.
At the beginning, there's like 100 different ways that you could attach this part to that part, or make something bend around. And it's like, well, I don't want to commit to like something that's wrong or not the most efficient. So yeah, you just spend so long just trying to think about it.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of why I like, like getting all my parts straight and then just painting over everything in Photoshop, because then I can get a really solid picture of what I want it to look like in the end without having to actually like commit to 3D modeling the whole thing. But then also knowing that everything's going to fit.
How good at drawing are you guys?
I'm terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad.
So.
I mean, from my understanding, Alice, like you seem like really artistic, and you're always designing stuff that looks like really great. So I can't believe you're not that good at drawing.
Thank you. Yeah, no, the truth is, I can get to a design that I like, but it's usually over a very long process of, I drew this line and it looks terrible, so I erased it and drew it again and again and again, and finally I see something that I like, and I'm like, okay, that's good. Just don't touch it ever again, because I'll never be able to replicate that.
Yeah. I think that when I'm drawing something for me to try and figure a design out, I've been doing that a bit since school and DT and through my engineering degree. So I have an all right ability to draw, I guess. But you don't really have to put that much effort in as long as you understand it. It's when you got to start conveying an idea to someone else, and you have to take it to be very slow and get all the lines right and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think drawing a concept is easy as long as nobody else sees it.
Yeah, totally. It's an organized mess. You understand.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything that you are kind of working on currently that you want to talk about or anything?
Yeah, I've got a few things. I've got one thing that I got together the other day, which would be kind of fun to show. I've got into HPA blasters a lot, and so I like thinking about what is something new that we haven't done yet. And so I've adapted the supercore to be able to shoot 3-round shells in a blaster like this. I actually have to give props to Pete from Thermal Alliance UK has kind of designed the blaster, but then he let me modify it to take what I was looking at. I'll just turn on my air, and I've got a mag loaded. And again, talking about the design process, this is like the first one I've printed, and so not everything is quite right. I'm literally just trying to prove the concept of if I can use the supercore to load a shell and then also eject it. And so when I put this in and I let go, this will come forwards and eject.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Shell ejecting HPA, that's awesome.
And yeah, I was trying to just make something really simple. So there's basically a lever arm. So when the supercore head is back, it hits the arm and makes it push out to eject. And when it comes forwards, it can then freely float the other way and just get out of the way. So yeah, it's not perfect. Sometimes the shells kind of hit and then slide a bit sideways, which you don't want. You want it to be centered. And so like that's something I'm going to have to figure out, a design feature or maybe a spring-loaded flap or something to fix that. But again, like that's just all part of building something and iteratively making it better when you come across problems. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah, have you got something, Alice?
yeah, I mean, you know, Atch is over here with a full printed prototype, and I've just got something that I was. A while ago on a live stream, I started designing in Photoshop a blaster that I had an idea for, just as like a, hey, like I'm going to take you through my design process and just like show you how I get to a piece of concept art. And then they bullied me, and now I made it. So it's sort of in the process of being done, and I did that. I started it the other day, just sort of so I would have something to show this exact thing, because you guys mentioned that that was what we were going to be doing. So I'm going to turn on my screen share, and hopefully that works out okay. So I've got Fusion pulled up here.
Oh, that is good.
There's not a whole lot of contrast, so it's a little bit hard to see, but this is my piece of concept here. And from that, I have then taken it, and I don't have the stock done, and there's some clear issues with the grip. One of the biggest issues I encounter is taking a project from the second dimension, where it's really easy to, you know, have conflicts in like heights and distances and stuff like that, and bringing it into the third dimension. And what I mean there is I expected this grip to be thicker than the magazine, and that's not at all the case. So I'm going to have to redesign this section here, but this sort of gives a decent understanding of I guess what I'm going for. And I hope this sort of visually explains, you know, some of my process going from just the piece of art over to, you know, something functional. And then further along in the process. We're going to jump to a different thing here, but once I've got the shape blocked out and everything, I will shell it out and give some support structures on the inside. And basically, once everyone thinks it's done, it's actually, another couple weeks of work to get it to a decent point. And then if we go from there, here's my first prototype for it. So I've shown this off at a couple different events, and it's not functional, which is why I'm still working on it in CAD. But we're getting there, and yeah.
That's awesome.
How many pieces is that? Like, how many prints?
This is 6 prints, but in reality it was more like 12 because my nozzle kept clogging. So this is like, I think 6 days of solid printing across like 3 machines. So
This is a dumb question. It's a Springer?
Yes. Yeah, it's basically just a plus bow. I just wanted to make it look nice. So
Nice.
Solid.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I've got some ideas that aren't finished, but they're kind of are more of a, I guess, an engineering functional kind of project, which kind of shows that process. A while ago, I was trying to think about a high capacity magazine, and so tried to design a snail type mag for half darts. And this would hold 35 darts if it worked. But it didn't work. But yeah, I had to go through like a few processes. So for instance, the follower has to be able to like rotate all the way around. And so, what is it? Yeah, it kind of imitates 3 darts with a pivot. And then the main problem though was that there was just too much friction. So it could push darts up from about that point. But as soon as they went around here, the spring just wasn't strong enough. And I even used 2 drum springs. It wasn't happening. And so then I thought, well, maybe I'll add some ridges on the wall here so that the darts aren't sliding against the whole wall, but just 2 ridges, maybe reduce the friction, spread a whole load of like lubrication in there. And then that still didn't work. So currently I'm not saying this can't happen, but line 1 doesn't currently work. So I'm working on other things. But yeah, the whole challenge was thinking like, okay, physically, or I guess with physics or whatnot, why is it not working? And then you have to try and put your mind to how you might fix that with some physical design features. And then
sometimes you have to just bail on stuff too. I would love to.
Are you saying that you should?
No. I'm sorry, that came out wrong. I didn't mean that. Bail on stuff. I'm saying like everybody at some point like has a grand idea, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Yeah, that's the hard thing as an engineer too. Is like, cool, I really want to make this thing work, and I'm gonna just try to make it work a million times, and sometimes. But anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, sometimes. That's just one other one. I printed a picture because I don't have it with me with the kind of lockdown and all that. But I was trying to basically think of a different way of doing a high capacity magazine. And so this is a pusher in a strife, basically. And I thought if you use half length darts and stack them double stack in a mag, but like one behind the other, so you have 2 stacks coming up, that's a way in which you could hold way more darts. But then you need a pusher that can push those through. And so I kind of looked at the hybrid pusher that Milan developed, and thought that what you can do is copy what a Chaos Mag does with its rival balls, and push the rear stack into the other stack, and you just keep pushing through. But that design doesn't. The flexible pusher, the hybrid one, doesn't work very well when you were trying to push darts both in a rear stack and a front stack. It works great at one or the other. And so thinking about that, I thought, well, what do I need? I need it to be able to be really strong when it's pushing in this direction, but also with really tiny force be able to be flipped up when the force comes from this direction. And so with those kind of two categories, that then made me think about, okay, what kind of shape can do that? And so this is a triangular piece that actually is on a little pivot with a very weak spring at the top there. So this thing can pivot up with like such a tiny force. But if you push it from this side, it's on a bit of an angle, so it's never going to rotate upwards if it's pushed. It's just going to stay in place. I don't know if that's clear or not. But yeah, with that design done, I didn't actually have enough throw or travel for the pusher. So then I also had to redesign all of this stuff so that I could get the maximum amount of throw in this small confined space. That one does work. It's just I don't know. I've kind of left it for a bit, so I might get back to that at some point. But you got to pick your projects to work on.
Yeah. Nice. Go ahead.
I for one am really glad that Atch did the snail mag and found out that it didn't work before I did it, because I had a similar idea and now I cannot do it.
No, you just need to change it somehow, or do something slightly different, because we need to make a snail mag that works.
Yeah.
What if you put a bunch of rollers around the outside? I've actually had lots of thoughts about this, of like, how do you do a proper drum mag? Not something that I'd ever actually want to sit down and put pen to paper, but like if you had some sort of like like thing where you had a bunch of roll, and you could even print these. I'm not talking about like 100 bearings along this thing, right?
Well,
I can see that.
I actually have that idea. That was the next thing, because my friend designed the that kind of P90 style blaster, the Bulwark that came out recently, and that has to go through 90 degrees, and he uses some printed bosses with little loops on them, and they just act as bearings. And so I printed a design like that, but they had to be so tiny small, the posts, and they were really long that most of them just sort of snapped off. And so it was a bit of a failure, but I mean, I tried. Yeah. What else do I have? I'm trying to make an HPA grenade launcher.
Nice.
I'm in the process of building that. I'm running out of filament though, and it's kind of low with the whole lockdown and everything.
Yeah, it's really hard to get right now.
I mean, I printed out a picture. This is what it should look like eventually.
I love his pictures.
Yeah, I didn't know screen share was going to work. You should have the ability to have a bottle on or have a remote line. And so that should take shells which shoot actual rockets that a guy in New Zealand, I think, has designed. Because there was an earlier streamer talking about shield busting and saying that no one really uses demolisher rockets, even though they can destroy shields, because there's just nothing that can really shoot them very well. So I was like, we need a solution to that. I'll try and make something that can shoot demolisher rockets. So yeah, I got a few parts together. It's difficult because the trigger pull has to do 3 different actions, and so there's a gear in here and things moving in different directions. But yeah, luckily you guys don't have to sort that out. I go through all the struggle and pain, and then I'll release that, and everyone else can just get a product.
It's cool to see you digging into HPA. I have a super core here too that
Gotta do something.
I want to do something with. I just don't know what and when.
Well, I mean, if you want to put it in a bullpup, you could do that. It's not.
I need one. I need one of those, just for the record.
As soon as I get more materials in, I can start making more. But yeah, it's just crazy. I don't know. Have we got any questions in the chat at all?
Yeah, it looks like we've got a couple here. I'll ask this one. What was the process of designing the FDL? Did you start from the bottom or the front or whatever?
Which one?
Probably the first one, right?
Well, because there were different design processes for
it
each.
says FDL 3.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the FDL, I mean, they've all compounded on each other, right? The most of the design was done on the 1. Like that's when I really figured out how do you actually fling a cylinder of foam from 2 spinning things. Like that's really actually hard to do. Like when you're starting from scratch, it's really actually hard to get a dart to shoot.
And not knowing Nerf.
Yeah, but I mean, it was what we kind of touched on before. It was like, what are the basic mechanisms that need to happen here? Like, I know the flywheels have to happen, right? So design like some sort of cage, and to the original FDL1, 2 minutes left of the current group. Sorry, we were being talked to. The original cage, the original FDL1 was actually brushed motors. It was those like big honking 380 motors. I was like, wow, if you just put giant motors on this, it'll hurl a mega dart really fast, and it did. But then the next step was, cool, we got a dart firing through this cage. How do you push, the dart into that? And then it was like, let's Google different simple mechanisms, and like, oh cool, Scotch yoke, that's the easiest to turn like a circular motion into a linear motion. Let's go with that, and then it's get those on screen and figure out how big that needs to be, and then like where do the darts sit, and there still to this day isn't like a super accessible mega dart mag. So the choice was made to do a revolver at that time. The FDL1 was very much like, let's do all of the things that are really hard to do and just do them, But then
that's brilliant though, because that's how you learn all the little things that you need to do. Like when you come now to designing a new blaster, you're not, even though you're starting from scratch, you're not really starting from scratch. You already kind of have this wisdom on how do I make a flywheel cage, and what are good motions for something to rotate, or how thick does this part need to be if it's probably not going to break. Yeah. And those kind of things you pick up along the way and kind of make the design process a bit easier, I think.
Yeah, I have kind of a library that I can work off of now.
We do have to stop.
Yeah, we got to
Time is
wrap things
up.
up. I'm going to say thank you to you guys. It's been an awesome chat. If you have anything you want to talk about, where can we follow you guys? Like, where can we find the stuff that you're working on and stuff like
that? I probably post most of my stuff on my Facebook page, which is Atch Attachments, so you'll probably find that there. I don't do Instagram or anything else really. It's probably just Facebook.
I do Instagram, but I hate it. But I'm mostly on YouTube. But I'm Alice Coatduck everywhere. So.
Awesome.
And we're Project FDL, at Project FDL.
Yeah.
All of your favorite
just
social
search
platforms.
for Project FDL on whatever platform you're on, and if it comes up, it comes up. It doesn't. But yeah.
Thank you guys. This was really fun.
No, it's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.